Part 27. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 261. Sugu was surprised to see Saratoga coming back in a mess. After all, this is no longer a game. The aircraft carrier won't rush to the front, so why does it still fall? Of course, if he is careful, he can naturally find clues, but there is no need to go to that point. After all, Saratoga doesn't want your money or eat your rice. On the contrary, for such a beautiful girl, asking you to help fill the bath water should be a job that she hopes for. Sugu boiled water and let it go. Saratoga went to collect the clothes, gathered them and threw them on the bed. At this time, she looked out of the window in the room and saw that the heavy rain outside had gradually lightened up and would probably stop completely. She put her hands on the windowsill and looked left and right at the window, thinking that it would take some time for her sister to come back. After finishing these things, she opened the door, opened it a crack, and looked out. The corridor was quiet, and the usually annoying little girl was not seen. Saratoga smiled, then closed the door and locked it. The rooms in the town hall were renovated from the original old town hall. Although the renovation is troublesome, every room has been renovated with a bathroom. This is mainly to facilitate everyone to take a bath when necessary. After all, lying in a bathtub filled with hot water is really a kind of enjoyment. At this time, Sugu was in the room at Lexington and Saratoga. He put the water in and reached into the bathtub. My fingers were feeling the temperature of the water, and I was still wondering whether to add more water. Sugu saw Saratoga standing at the door of the bathroom and said, "Did you meet a lot of deep-sea ship girls outside? Why haven't you come back yet?" "Because there are some things that need to be cleaned up on the battlefield. Moreover, we might meet a ship girl who has escaped the shackles of the deep sea. Then we will have another companion." "That's it?" "We encountered the deep-sea flagship," Saratoga said. "Although I heard from Tianhao that a deep-sea flagship might appear, I didn't expect it to actually be there." However, Sugu met deep-sea Yamato on the second anniversary of the original game. Well, there seems to be a swimsuit mission. Model worker Fukumai Yamato, this is really her destiny, she can meet her no matter where she is. "Have you encountered any danger?" After Sugu said this, he then thought that he must have encountered no danger, otherwise Saratoga would not be standing here. And the other party has already said that everyone is fine. Then Sugu said, "Who is the MVP?" "Why are you asking such a question?" "It must be me." The girl raised her hair. "If it were you, it must have been repeated many times by now. But if you didn't say it, then the MVP is definitely not you." Of course, Sugu knew Saratoga's character. If she won the so-called MVP, I'm afraid no one in the entire town doesn't know about it now. Saratoga was a little discouraged and said, "The MVP is Bazai." "Bazai? If you don't obey anyone, let's just leave it to Bazai. She doesn't understand anything anyway." "Bazai doesn't understand?" "Bazai knows everything." Sugu has a lot to say about this. Bazai's character is that if he wants something, he will do it, and he will do whatever he wants, although most of the time he is in a state of aversion to trouble. Saratoga said angrily, "Bazai, fools are blessed." Although Bazai is a bit lazy and a bit of a homebody, it can't be said to be stupid. It's just stupid. He is so old and still acts like a child and doesn't understand anything. "It's not that I don't understand, Bazai understands better than any of you. After all, she is good at drawing notebooks and full of dirty power." Sugu thought for a while, but couldn't think of a good adjective for a long time, and then said, "Probably naive to a certain extent." Sugu reached out and stirred the bathtub, and then said, "The water temperature feels right. You can wash it. If it is going into the canal, you should add steel into it. I will go to the warehouse to get it later, and you can soak it first." The ship girl is a fantasy life, born from the memory and history of steel. If it sinks, it will become memory and history again. If it is injured, it can be repaired by simply absorbing the steel that contains memories and history. Although the steel containing memory and history will be absorbed and turned into ordinary steel by then. Saratoga said, no need to add steel. You don't want to repair it? If you want to repair it, you will definitely need steel. I just wanted to take a bath, so please ask my brother-in-law to turn on the water. He was teased by his sister-in-law again, Sugu thought to himself. At the same time, Saratoga looked at Sugu's back and thought, sister and the others should be back soon. If they don't take action, they will have no chance. Thinking like this, she then took off the outermost skirt. The girl's figure is slender, but compared to Lexington's tall figure, the girl undoubtedly needs to grow. At this time, she took off the outermost skirt, revealing the underwear underneath. She covered her chest with her hands and looked through the floor-to-ceiling mirror in the bathroom, thinking that her figure was no worse than her sister's, at least the size of her chest was the same. Then, she hugged Sugu from behind. Brother-in-law. Sugu's movements suddenly became stiff. Saratoga said, although I always call me brother-in-law, brother-in-law is not brother-in-law. The Admiral also gave Gaga a ring. Gaga also has a wedding dress in the closet. It is a wedding ship. That night, my sister ran away. I went into your room, and I listened outside all night. Gaga, Gaga, I like the Admiral. Sugu's body stiffened, and the girl's words revealed infinite charm. You don't need to add steel to the bathtub, you just need to add your brother-in-law into it. The voice was soft and charming. Sugu stretched out his hand from the bathtub, thinking that Giorgio was his wedding ship. As a man, he was not very loyal. And even in terms of loyalty, it is no longer possible, not even from the beginning. Until now, my mind is full of sisters, sisters, sisters. Saratoga said, we hid in the bathtub. When my sister comes back, she will definitely look for us. Zai told her, brother-in-law, please put the bath water for me, and she found her way into the room. The door was closed in the bathroom. She asked me, brother-in-law, where have you been? I held you and told her, you went out. We hid in the bathtub, and my sister sat alone in the room. You didn't dare to go out, and neither did I go out. I waited and waited for a long time, but my sister didn't see me coming out. She asked, Gia, why did you take so long to wash? I said it's okay. But it would be weird after washing. So my sister said, come out, if you don't come out I will open the door, what's going on inside? Saying this, Saratoga stood in the bathtub and said, isn't it exciting to think about it this way? Then she pulled Sugu into the bathtub. Then, a bang sounded. Sugu held his head and said, it hurts. He hit the wall. Soon after, Sugu changed his clothes and walked out of his room. At this time, while touching the injured head, I thought, what kind of strange habit is there? My sister-in-law is completely hopeless, what should I do? Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 262. Sugu was walking in the corridor and stretched out his hand to touch his head. At first, Saratoga grabbed his hand and bumped his head against the wall. Well, now a lump has bulged, and now you can feel pain when you touch it with your fingers. There was originally a somewhat ambiguous atmosphere, but my sister-in-law hit her head and all her clothes were soaked with water. The atmosphere was completely ruined by my sister-in-law. Walking in the corridor, because my sister-in-law made such a fuss, I no longer felt a sense of crisis. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly realized that he was a little hungry. Only then did he remember that dinner had not been prepared yet. After all, I originally came back in the afternoon, and then went out in an emergency, and the mere dinner was almost forgotten. At this time, I was thinking about preparing a dinner and saw San Juan in the corridor. It was already dark, and incandescent lights were turned on under the corridor, and the dim yellow light illuminated the whole way. For such a large townhouse, there are actually street lights all the way. So far, the townhouse is not short of money at all, at least not for the electricity bills of these light bulbs. On the other side, seeing Sugu covering his head, San Juan asked, "Didn't the Admiral help Saratoga release water into the canal? Just let the water go, and then." Sugu thought like this, but after thinking about it for a while, he still didn't tell what happened inside. San Juan thought of what might happen, snickered and said, "Gaga just likes you." Sugu said helplessly, rather than liking her, "I think she probably likes Lexington. Yes, my sister-in-law's favorite must be her sister Lexington, and then I guess, I probably still like her." At this time, Sugu and San Juan were walking side by side and said, "Admiral, we have won, haven't we?" "Yes. How could we lose?" "You are so confident now, but it turns out that the Admiral still looks worried. I was afraid that someone would get hurt, but fortunately nothing happened. Gia is back, everyone should be back soon." The heavy rain had completely stopped by this time, and only occasionally could you see raindrops dripping from the eaves and under the leaves. Sugu said, "Should be back soon, the matter is finally over, no one was injured. There are probably still some scratches, and that one just needs to rest for a while. The townhouse was not damaged, although even if it was in case of damage, there will be subsidies afterwards. However, rebuilding the garrison is also very troublesome. The deep-sea flagship, Deep-sea Yamato. If there is no resistance and the deep-sea fleet is attacked, the destruction of the garrison is almost certain. Except for people like Sugu, it will be useless even if the admiral resists, and he is entirely because of the game. This is considered a natural disaster and is irresistible. Generally, the ship girl headquarters will provide subsidies." San Juan said, "The deep-sea flagship is a formidable enemy. I have never encountered it before, but I have only heard of it. If the deep-sea fleet passes through, all the merchant ships will stop. In the past, we were fighting with people," he said, "we are escorting passenger ships. If we were to fight against those deep-sea flagships, we would definitely run away. Without professional ethics, there is only professional ethics. Fighting against those deep-sea fleets is like sending death. It doesn't mean that ship girls are the embodiment of fairness, justice, and courage, but they actually said such words. If you do something like that, you will become the embodiment of stupidity, and you are not OVO. Have fun with me, Quincy." It was obviously the admiral who started it. Sugu smiled and said, "It's a pity that Gia said that deep-sea Yamato escaped. If it were in the game, of course he wouldn't be afraid of deep-sea Yamato. In contrast, we should expect her to come more often, bring activities, and bring swimsuits." Sugu added, "Speaking of which, Helena's swimsuit was snatched from Yamato Fukamai. I'm sorry to say it, but you've been harassing Helena just because of her swimsuit. I wonder if she has any shadow now." After being told too much, Sugu actually didn't feel anything anymore, and that wasn't because he didn't have Didian's little skirt to lift up. After a long time, Sugu said, "I wonder what Helena is doing. Have no idea." Saying this, the journey was actually not far, and then we arrived at the office. On the way back to the office, I passed by the cafeteria. San Juan said, "I'm going to prepare dinner. You can probably eat it now." "That's fine. It's all over anyway, let's do more." However, the admiral was wrong. Everything is not over yet. "How?" "Then it's time to test your warehouse." Sugu returned to the office and saw a group of little girls making a lot of noise. They were not worried in the first place, and after hearing Saratoga say that everyone was fine, they became even less worried. Then he sat behind his desk, waiting somewhat boredly for everyone to come back. I picked up the newspaper, flipped through it, and put it down again. I picked up the book, flipped through it, and put it down again. Admiral. Then he saw Sixby walking over. The little girl couldn't recognize her previous appearance at all. He remembered that she was scared away when she first met him at that time. Sixby walked to Sugu, then sat on Sugu's legs, raised his head and looked at Sugu. Yes, the request to sit on one's lap. Sugu simply couldn't refuse the beautiful little girl's request. So would you like some rabbit today? The club is so popular, and you really don't understand the charm of the destroyer. As that sentence says, what's so good about a destroyer? You can't even imagine how good a destroyer is. Sixby said. Admiral and Sister Gaga took a bath together. No. Then why did you change your clothes? Just change it if you want. Sniff. But you smell like Gaga, Sixby said. Sugu was no longer the original Sugu. His face was not red, his heart was not beating, and he said, no. Sixby patted Sugu's chest, drew circles, and said, there's actually no way to come up with a formula. Sugu looked at the little girl. Who did you learn this character from? You didn't mean to be someone like Lexington. When talking to the little girl, nothing unexpected happened. Soon after, the office door was pushed open, and Sugu saw everyone coming back. Just as Saratoga imagined, Lexington asked upon his return, Admiral, where is Jar Jar? She went to take a shower. Into the ditch. No, I just went to take a shower. Why are you injured on your head? As he said this, Lexington noticed the top of Sugu's head carefully and reached out to touch it. Don't touch it, I accidentally hit the wall. Why are you so careless? It's okay, no problem. Admiral, at this time, Firefly came in from the outside, followed by Amethyst. Firefly and Amethyst were not harmed, that is, they were soaked. Then Bismarck came in, her clothes somewhat ruined, and covering her breast with one hand. The Prince of Wales' hair, which was originally pinned to the sides, fell down, and his eye patch was destroyed, revealing eyes that looked like burning flames. It was not like Sugu had never seen the Prince of Wales like this before, and he didn't mind at this time. He counterattacked and took off his hair accessories, looking at his clothes with some regret. It looked like he had to let the diva sew another one. She spoke to Sugu and then went out. Then Sugu saw Akage walk in with a little girl, a child he didn't recognize. Who is she? At this time, the little girl stood up and said, are you the Admiral? I am Lan. Lan, Sugu was stunned for a moment, then fished out the boat and fished out Lan. Isn't that the legendary destroyer Lan of the leading party? At this time, I smiled and thought to myself, it seems that there will be stories about Yamato and Deep Sea in the future. Then Akage said, let's go first. Then she took Lan and walked away. Seeing that everyone was fine, Sugu felt completely relieved. After all, we are not in a game, so we have to admire everyone's appearance. Now that everyone's clothes are torn, it is hard to look at them. Then he told everyone to do whatever they should do, take a shower when it was time to take a shower, and change clothes when it was time to change. When everyone went out, Sugu saw York City. He smiled and said, York City, have you learned? York City blinked inexplicably. Have you learned anything? That is to say, you watched the whole battle outside. Did you learn anything? York City was a little discouraged. He originally thought he was similar to everyone else, but looking at Saratoga's carrier-based aircraft and the means to control them, he couldn't do the flying movements of those carrier-based aircraft at all. Normally, I like to pinch the little girl's face, but then I realize that even the little girl is much more powerful than me when it comes to fighting, such as Firefly's headbutt. At this time, I had to feel discouraged. Sugu saw Nelson again and said, hey, why is Instructor Nelson here? Isn't that the instructor of the college? I remember he was thrown twice before. Nelson looked at Sugu coldly. Although she didn't know the specifics, but with such a fleet, was it necessary to go to the academy? Is it still necessary to call yourself an instructor? I originally wanted to remind you that a deep-sea fleet is coming and ask you to hide, but it seems to be of no use now. Sugu smiled and said, I'm surprised too. After saying a few words like this, Sugu said, Instructor, wait a moment. I'll go find some clothes to see if there are any clothes that suit you. Let's change, of course. Sugu knew Nelson's intention. If not because he had such a fleet, accidents would have happened long ago. Being able to come and inform myself at this time, as an instructor, there is no problem at all, and I have done my duty. Nelson was asked to change clothes mainly because although the ship girl would not get sick, she would certainly be uncomfortable wearing wet clothes. Next, everyone should take a shower and do whatever they should do. In the office, Sugu thought for a while, what a great victory. San Juan was preparing dinner alone, and then he motioned for the little girls to follow him. When I went out, I saw Exeter. The pink-haired girl had nothing to do and was in a daze every day. And because her sister York still hasn't come over yet, she is always worried. Sugu said, Exeter, let's go to the warehouse and get some things out. It's a big victory. We need to celebrate. Get some drinks or snacks. Soon after, a simple banquet was held, all with food cooked in San Juan's big pot. Some pastries, nuts, biscuits, fruits, these storable foods were also taken out and placed on the table, making it look like a sumptuous dinner. Then wait until everyone has finished their work and go to the cafeteria. Sugu looked at everyone. Although there were scratches, they could not be seen at this time. If the ship's uniform had not been exposed, it would not be clear whether the ship's mother was already smoking or what. Counterattack was the first one to come over. Her hair was still wet at this time, so she didn't roll it up and wrap it in a cloth like before. At this moment she wanted to help with the banquet, which no amount of persuasion could persuade her to do. Baizai has already changed into a pair of pajamas, yes, pajamas with plaid patterns. She was wearing pajamas and slippers, and her plan was to go to bed after dinner. Saratoga had already come over, saw Baizai, and whispered in Sugu's ear, there is a vacuum in Baizai. Bullshit, I can see that. Bismarck changed into a dress, which Sugu bought for her when she went out with Sugu. She looked a little shy in it. Of course, you can't see it on her face. The shyness can be seen from the way she pulls her sleeves, collar, and skirt from time to time. Akage was wearing a Japanese yukata, and when she saw the banquet's eyes shining, she held Arashi's hand. Sugu poured a glass of wine and said, celebrate everyone's victory. Sugu was having a party here, and Linda was driving on the other side. The mountain road is rugged, and when driving a car, the fire can no longer be seen in the distance, which makes people wonder whether the ship girl was attacked and sunk, or maybe the garrison was attacked and is now in ruins. It is difficult for ordinary cars to cross mountain roads. The heavy rain has stopped, but the wipers are still swinging. I pressed the clutch and then braked. Something hit the front glass of the car. I don't know if it was a bat or some other animal. You can't see behind in the rearview mirror, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, there is no chance of encountering a car and causing a car accident. It was a bit strenuous to go up a slope, and then downhill again. Soon after, through the woods, lights could be seen in the field of vision. They were the lights of the town hall. With the lights on, Linda thought, the situation wouldn't look too bad. Driving all the way to the gate of the governor's mansion, there was only a small gate, which could barely be opened to traffic. But the iron gate was closed and locked. After thinking about it, Linda got out of the car door, then touched the iron door, and then climbed over it. Of course, she had no problem with this little thing. After all, she had been an admiral for a while before becoming a teacher in the academy. It's trivial to manage the garrison by one person, carry heavy objects and change light bulbs all by one person. There were no signs of being attacked around, and there were no huge pits or broken walls like the garrison buildings that had been attacked. Could it be that the deep-sea fleet didn't come here? She walked towards the place with the most lights and saw a little girl at the door. The little girl also looked over. The little girl said, "Who are you?" "I'm here to find your admiral." "Admiral, he is inside." Linda walked over and saw that there was a canteen inside, with suspended ceilings and chandeliers made to make life easier. "Is this a canteen or a dance hall?" "The floor is tiled and there is a faucet next to it. There is a picture posted on the wall that says, 'Shameful Waste.' A cute cartoon Akagi head doing scissor hands is in the corner of the picture." Then Linda saw a banquet being held inside. She saw Zeppelin and Nelson eating, looking at her with some confusion. Linda asked, "What are you doing?" "Eat." "It's not that there is a deep-sea fleet, do you have a sense of crisis? There is no protection, no reinforcement of walls, or hiding in bunkers or air raid shelters. You are actually eating, at banquets, buffets." Linda suddenly felt very wronged, the grievance is very aggrieved. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De-Rong Yan. Chapter 263. Linda was a little aggrieved, indeed a little aggrieved. It was clearly agreed that a catastrophic deep-sea fleet would appear, so at that time even I gave up my comfortable life in the academy and took on the responsibility as a teacher, just to survive this catastrophe. It won't be time for everyone to get hurt. I drove here by myself and bumped along the muddy path. The winding mountain road didn't even have guardrails, so I could only drive carefully on the side of the mountain. As a woman with a good figure and a beautiful appearance, who is fighting for such a thing, it would be hard to call her a warrior. Climbing over mountains and ridges, and finally climbing over an iron gate, I actually saw you eating in the end. Everyone dressed up beautifully after taking a shower, eating at the buffet, and having a banquet. At this time, I just want to say that I have a saying in MMP that I don't know whether to say or not. Linda was feeling aggrieved. Seeing her panting, Nelson was eating macaroni carelessly and asked, "Why are you here?" "Because I'm stupid." "Yes, stupid, that is, worrying about someone or someone." A person suddenly ran over to the governor's mansion. Everyone in the cafeteria was a little surprised. San Juan, who was wearing a white chef's hat and holding a spoon, happened to see Linda walking in and said, "Who is that?" Sugu was originally discussing with San Juan about what to cook next. At this time, he turned his head and saw a man talking to Nelson, patting the table next to him with one hand. That was someone I had never thought of. It took me a few seconds to remember that he was also the teacher in the college, although he didn't have much interaction with him. Sugu said, "Linda, a teacher from our college, I'll go over and take a look. You can get whatever you want, charcoal grilled sorry, and by the way, preserved eggs are fine too." With that said, Sugu walked over, saw Linda and then said, "Hello, teacher Linda, why are you here?" This is the question again. Linda stared at Sugu with a fierce look. She was not a serious teacher and had no image as a teacher even though she could do things like traveling at public expense. Regardless of the other person's eyes, thanks to more than 20 years of education, no matter who the person is, no matter what business they come to do, as long as they are eating, they will say hello as a matter of course. Sugu said, "Let's eat something together." Linda brushed her bangs, sniffed, gritted her teeth and said, "Eat." "You're really rude," so Sugu he counterattacked, "Bring the bowls and chopsticks." Not long after, Linda took the bowls and chopsticks and sat down directly next to Nelson. "My destroyer asked the 100-eyed giant to help guard it, so I came out, What do you think is going on? The thing is like this. Nelson did not sell out and told what he knew. After all, everyone is very familiar with each other, so there is no need to be secretive, although even if they are not familiar with each other, there is no need to be secretive. Linda nodded from time to time, and then looked at Bazai, who was wearing pajamas and going his own way. Then he looked at Lexington. Counterattack in maid uniforms was walking around everywhere. Exeter was considered a celebrity in the circle of admirals and ship girls. After all, he had inspired many admirals and ship girls. Lindy stared at Saratoga and said to Nelson, Bismarck, Prince of Wales, Prince Eugen, and Lexington. You said that girl with blonde hair is the aircraft carrier Saratoga. Although he couldn't figure out the specific situation, Nelson nodded and said, yes. Linda broke off the biscuit in his hand and said, I served as an admiral for 3 years, only destroyers, and then I went to the academy to become an admiral, MMP. At the same time, Saratoga held Sugu's hand and whispered, why did another person come over? Who is that? Linda, we were a teacher from Sichuan-Jiu College. As for why you came here, ask me, how do I know? She has been staring at me, looking like she has evil intentions. Stop talking nonsense, why are you staring at you? Well, it seems that he is indeed staring at Saratoga. Nelson and Linda both came here because of the Deep Sea Fleet. Nelson and Linda couldn't understand why the Deep Sea Fleet was defeated like this. As for Sugu, he didn't know how to explain it well. The only thing he could do next was he ended the topic vaguely. After greeting everyone to eat and drink, in the corner of the cafeteria, Sugu saw Akage destroying the food in front of him, as if he was proud of the battle. Next to Akage, his new ship girl, a little destroyer named Arashi, stared at Akage in stunned silence, with an expression that showed her illusions had been destroyed and her idols had collapsed. At this time, Sugu sat next to Lan and said, do you really have memories of the past? Although it is said that when the deep-sea ship girl wakes up, she will bring with her memories of the past, such as endless wandering on the sea, such as unscrupulous attacks. However, unlike everyone else, Ian's memory is obviously much clearer. Lan said, there is a little bit of vague memory. Then what do you remember? I remember that Sister Yamato took good care of us. Does the deep-sea flagship also know how to take care of people? Sugu didn't believe it. What are those specific things? I don't remember, but I know where Sister Yamato is. If you want to see Sister Yamato, I can show you the way. Regardless of whether it's a game or reality, there's nothing wrong with Midway, Akage, Yamato, and Danglin really leading the way. The dinner actually didn't last long. After the meal, Bismarck and the Prince of Wales went to replenish resources. Lexington and Saratoga also went, but she was not in a hurry to fight back. In her words, wait a minute, I still have a lot of things to do. The warehouse is temporarily managed by Leipzig. In fact, anyone can manage it. After all, it is such a big garrison. If Leipzig wants to do something, let her do it. The warehouse is usually closely guarded, but this time Bismarck is the boss. Regarding the Prince of Wales, Leipzig did not dare to say anything. This time she no longer had the usual dawdling movements. At this time, the dinner was over, and Nelson and Lindy also expressed their intention to leave. Comparatively, everything was over. For now, at least everything was being dealt with clearly, and many admirals were still waiting there. Live here. I drove over here. It took a lot of effort to come here. Let's leave tomorrow. Linda said without hesitation, fake politeness. Sugu had to admit that he was just being polite. After all, the two of them were not acquaintances. Then he smiled and said nothing more. They wanted to leave. At this time, Linda no longer needed to climb the iron gate. He fought back and found the key, and then they left in the car. Come over and play next time. Sugu sent the person away, and then he saw Leipzig walking over with a pained expression on his face. Advisor Su asked, "Have Bismarck and the others replenished their fuel and ammunition?" "It's still a little bit worse, and the counterattack didn't add up." Sugu's expression paused and he said, "Well, that means that the resources I have saved for so long are not enough for all of them to replenish ammunition and fuel." Sugu gritted her teeth and thought, no wonder, when she was an intern, her senior Chen Nan said that even if you build a battleship, you won't be able to afford it. "I didn't care at that time, but I understand now that it's just a battleship, but it's too edible." Leipzig said, "Although Lexington and the others have gained air control, the carrier-based aircraft will always be damaged, so the replenishment of aluminum." "I know." After saying this, Sugu turned around and walked towards the door of the town guard mansion. "How about them?" he countered, "they have already left." "What can I do, Admiral?" "Counterattack, prepare for bombardment, keep them." I said, "We have done such a big thing, and it is not an exaggeration to say that we have saved countless properties, so we should discuss the resource reimbursement before leaving." "Ah. Of course, shelling was impossible." In the night, Linda turned on the car's headlights and the vehicle drove through the mountain road. Linda said, "Who do you think he is?" "There are only two people left, and there is something to say in such a situation. To say that Akagi followed the other party at the beginning, it would not be surprising if he was someone who was better at fishing for boats and took away Akagi. Linda. Zeppelin followed, and he could probably guess that it was related to Akagi. After thinking about it, Lindy added, "That Bismarck, I saw him following him before. I saw it several times. At first, I thought it was who it was, but I didn't expect it to be Bismarck. Before let Sugu exercise, and she will naturally be there. Anyone who cares will know that the two of them are traveling together." As for Bismarck's identity, when asked over there, Sugu would certainly not hide it, and everyone told him who he was. Of course, the more secret question is where it was harvested and when it was built. It's not a household registration check. In fact, both Lindy and Nelson are people who know the truth, so naturally they won't ask so many questions. Forget Bismarck, he still has Lexington and Saratoga. Nelson said, "There have been several Bismarcks and Lexingtons over the years, but you don't know, I saw their equipment. That is an exaggeration, probably only Dean Warborn can compare with it, barely. Our forever 17-year-old Dean has been around for a long time, and has even participated in major events such as the separation of ship girls, admirals, and the government. After so many years of accumulation, it is not unusual to have such equipment. But those people, it's a bit too much to have such good equipment." Lindy added, "Do you remember York City's carrier-based aircraft? In the past, Lindy also went to watch the exercises between York City and Ark Royal." As they were talking like this, the car shuddered on the mountain road and a red envelope fell out. Nelson picked up the red envelope. She also knew that putting a red envelope in the car was for good luck. Nelson said, "Unexpectedly." Lindy also said, "I can't imagine why they are so powerful. They must have something to do with the ship girl headquarters." Nelson was stunned for a moment and said, "I mean, the money fell out of the red envelope." "Unexpectedly, there was only 6 UN in it." Linda sighed. By the way, people from the ship girl headquarters are coming over. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai-De Rong Yan. Chapter 264. Inside the chilling Joint Operations Room, a world map hung on the wall, with 2 flags symbolizing the ship girl headquarters crossed on the map. Different from the casual style of the ship girl, this war room looks a bit serious. It was completely night at this time, but the room was brightly lit. Many people were sitting inside, including Nelson, Linda, instructors and teachers from the academy, including some admirals who had known about it in advance, and the governor of the nearby garrison. Although the so-called governor only represented seniority, many times he was just an old salty man. Fish. There is a long table in the war room. On the long table is a chart. The chess pieces representing the identity of the ship's mother are placed on the chart. The garrison offices in various places are marked on the map with red marks. The deep-sea fleet was wiped out. Are you really not kidding? I saw with my own eyes the retreat of the Abyssal Yamato. When the Abyssal flagship attacks, it is often accompanied by strong winds and heavy rains, although not every time, but this time. As you can see, the heavy rain has stopped now. Nelson told what he knew, minus some exaggerations. Shipgirl mercenary? I have never heard of such a powerful shipgirl mercenary. Regarding this point, Nelson herself was unable to tell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In fact, she did not believe those statements. At this time, she looked out of the window of the war room. It had been dark for a while, and there were still many admirals standing outside. She said, their origins are not the point. As long as they are shipgirls, there will definitely be no problem. Now the deep-sea flagship is being defeated, there is a question. What should we tell the admirals outside? Just saying that the deep-sea fleet was defeated by a garrison, that seems a bit ridiculous. Maybe some people will suspect that what we originally received was false intelligence. After all, no place has been attacked now. That is a crisis of confidence. Governor, you have to say something. The elderly governor only reacted at this time and said, how can I care about those guys? Listening to me is to give me face. After all, I have been here for so long and have given everyone a lot of help. I won't do anything if you don't listen to me method. Old salted fish. Ah. There is another question about the appearance of a deep-sea flagship here. We sent out such important information and asked the shipgirl headquarters to send people over. Now, they are probably coming soon. Treat them to a meal, and then you are asking people to go back again? It's like it's child's play, and they'll be killed. It will take a while for them to come over. Otherwise, send a telegram before they come over. The combat team is usually not that fast anyway. In the war room, Linda lay on the long table and said, what the hell, we have solved such an important and difficult matter, but it gives us a headache. Our college didn't care about this in the first place, but now we are kindly helping. Specific what's going on? Instead of having a headache and causing trouble here, it's better to tell everyone so that everyone can understand. Xiaolin said it well, I think so too. Old salted fish, wallflower, haha. I was about to retire. The joint operations room held meetings behind closed doors. To a certain extent, it put a lot of pressure on the admirals gathered outside. The matter was cordoned off, and those who knew the details were meeting, without any leaks being revealed. Most people would assume that they are probably discussing something important. It was already night, and someone bought a lunchbox outside. At this time, he and his wife were squatting next to them and eating. Some people are angrily thinking that everyone here doesn't care about food. The food in the only shop open outside the street tastes really bad. There is a serious and tense atmosphere here. In fact, a well-informed businessman has come over a long time ago and asked everyone to protect the ships and warehouses. He will be grateful when the time comes. However, their proposal was rejected. The admirals here said that it was their duty to protect everyone. There were things that could be done and things that couldn't be done, at least not in the presence of the knife-wielding gendarme in the distance. There are meetings going on in the war room, which has a great impact on the outside. There are always people worried about various issues. The ambitious admiral was careless and didn't take it seriously, thinking that the taller admiral would hold up the sky if it fell. Of course, there are also worried people who are already nervously speculating on various issues. We're in a meeting again. Is the situation really that serious? Let me tell you what exactly happened. We waited from afternoon to evening, and we had to have a late-night snack. Admiral, you have a lunch box in your hand. You ate once in the afternoon, and now you are having a midnight snack. I don't know what's going on. It's impossible to turn into 7 ships descending from the Tian Shan Mountains. The topic easily got sidetracked. What is 7 ships under the Tian Shan Mountains? Some people don't know this illusion. That's Akamai Yamato, Akamai Akagakaga, Akamai Nikotaku, Akamai Shoukekuzi Wikaku, Fortress Heim. That's not 8 people anymore. Akamai Z Wikaku is the main body, Akamai Shoukeiku is responsible for defense, they only count as 1. What about Deep Sea Kamikaze and Deep Sea Barbarossa? Aren't they considered deep sea flagships? Are you making excuses? Then they quarreled there. Some of them were sentimentalists who only approved of the 7 ships going down to Tian Shan, and some of them were new admirals. After a long time, an admiral stood up and said, "How about we not fight Fortress Psyche? She is super cute. I want to give her a lollipop and a ring." Fortress Psyche is the cutest, followed by Deep Sea Tirpitz, and the rest are not good. I agree. 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 I haven't seen. Call me brother, let me show you the photo. There was also an admiral who sneered at such words. He was from the military and was serious and rigid. At this time, he crossed his chest and sneered, "Boring, idiots, I will crush you if I meet the deep sea flagship. Give me back the ring, show off, and the sperm will enter your brain." His ship girl said beside him, "Everyone is just joking, but I also think Fortress Girl is super cute." While they were talking here, the door to the Joint Operations Room suddenly opened, Nelson walked out, and everyone looked at her. Nelson cleared his throat and said, "Everyone should return to their own townhouses for the time being and wait for the next announcement. After being here for so long, it must be unpleasant to be asked to go back without an explanation." Someone said, "What are you doing? What's going on? Now we are no longer students." To a certain extent, everyone has the same status, whether they are admirals or instructors. That is. I think so too. Nelson grinned, twitched the corners of his eyes, and said, "Because the deep sea ship girl has been annihilated, so, you should go back." Nelson was always dignified in the academy. He originally felt that he was wrong, so he restrained his temper. Now the following people were jumping more and more, so she could only put on her usual airs. Most of the admirals here graduated from the academy, and Nelson was also their instructor, so the noisiness was quieted down. Then someone said, "You are unreasonable and want us to pretend that nothing happened. At least give me A++. A++ represents a certain amount of resources, which is compensation." At this time, a voice came from somewhere, "I want us to pretend that nothing happened, underwear, underwear." Nelson said, "Xin, come to my room tonight, I guarantee you'll be happy." "Oh, why did you find out it was me?" Someone whispered, "I said she is also stupid, she is the only one who can produce that soft female voice." Although all the admirals complained, they had to leave in the end. Nelson drove away the people outside, and Colossus, a new employee of the academy, ran over at this time and said, "Someone is coming from the ship girl headquarters." "Who is it?" "I don't know, I saw her on the dock, I think it was a heavy cruiser." "Feel?" Yeah, Colossus nodded. She was a newbie and didn't recognize the ship's uniform at all. She just saw the ship girl coming from the dock. The caliber on the ship's uniform was extremely large. Nelson patted his forehead and muttered, "Trouble, the ship girl headquarters." The ship girl headquarters is just an organization, similar to an organization that strives to protect the interests of all admirals and ship girls. In the beginning, the first batch of admirals and ship girls worked hard to separate everyone from the government. Later, when we were divided, we wanted to set up an organization to protect everyone. After all, Only when everyone works together can we accomplish great things, and nothing can be accomplished if we are all scattered. The Kanyang headquarters was established under such circumstances, and it has grown to become bigger and bigger now. The bigger the headquarters, the more rules it has. At this time, Lindy also came out and said, "Are you here alone? I still hope that the person in charge is an ordinary person." Just like an academy, in the ship girl headquarters, there are both ship girls and ordinary people. Some of them are people who have graduated from the academy and do not want to become admirals, people who have lost interest in war matters, and those who are too old to work on the front line as admirals. After they retired from work, they worked at the ship girl headquarters. Lindy hopes that the person in charge is an ordinary person. It's not that the ship girls are bad, it's just that some ship girls are stubborn, while ordinary people are easy to communicate and adaptable. Ship girls who are too stubborn are usually in the combat team, otherwise they will join the gendarmerie. The gendarmerie actually needs some ship girls who are flexible in thinking, and they cannot all be stubborn ship girls, because they have to deal with people. It would be better for a stubborn ship girl to find an admiral, as long as the admiral can hold her down. "Here she comes," said Colossus. Just like that, Linda saw the person walking towards him. She didn't know what model the ship was, or whether it was powerful or not. She didn't even pay attention to her appearance, whether she had a good waist, or her job title. She didn't even pay attention to everything. The only thing that made people care about the people walking towards them was their breasts. As a woman, Linda was usually carefree and lacked the elegance of a woman, but as long as she was a woman, it was impossible not to care. The chest of the person walking towards me was really exaggerated. At this time, there were still some admirals who had not left. Linda squinted and saw the male admirals in the distance. When they looked at the ship girl, their eyes could light up. Linda went up to meet her, looking at the other person's alluring and sinful breasts, thinking to herself, they were like a ripe peach, sucking a mouthful of juice. "Well, it's a little dirty." Linda said, "Hello." Although he greeted her like this, Linda thought angrily that one day someone would poke and prod those big breasts. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 265. After leaving the town hall, the new year passed, and a long time passed. At this time, winter has passed and spring has arrived. Helena remembered that she and her colleagues went to see the beautiful pink peach blossoms in the mountains a few days ago. It rained lightly the day after watching peach blossoms, and the weather continued to have continuous spring rains. This has always been something she felt lucky for. "Good morning, Helena." "Good morning. Actually, it's not good. I guess there are a lot of things to do today. Rather than dealing with documents, I think it's better to take action. I think everything is fine." She has been working at Kenmu headquarters for half a year, and initially joined the combat team of Kenmu headquarters. It's said to be the headquarters, but to be more precise, it's a branch of Kanyang's headquarters. Because she has a more mature figure than a young high school student, and is equipped with a long-range gun commonly known as a Kirov gun, she was once mistaken for a heavy cruiser, although in fact she is a light cruiser. When I joined the combat group, my position was a little vague at first, but it soon became a panacea. After all, she is equipped with Kirov cannons, sonar and deep bombs, coupled with the powerful enemy detection effect of the ship's equipment. It can be said to be an all-round player, with no major shortcomings in any aspect. However, such a strong combat power did not allow her to stay in the combat team for long, and she was later transferred to another job. Because she is good at communication compared to the serious and rigid ship girls in the combat team, she was transferred to be responsible for organization and communication. However, the current personnel relations are still in the combat team. Responsible for organization and communication. At first, some people joked that everything was because of the fat on the chest. Any man would stutter and become talkative in front of such breasts, and any woman would feel inferior. Although she was teased, she didn't take it seriously. At that time, she would hold her chest and look at the opponent, and she would probably be able to see the opponent's defeat soon. Report to the department in the morning, then walk out of the office with the documents in hand, greeting people on the way. Walking between the two buildings, he held the documents in front of his chest and looked at the men around him with disdain. At this time, she remembered that she once met a pot-bellied man on the street who wanted to use money to support herself, but later gave the man a slap in the face. Later, the police came, but as soon as the ship uniform was displayed, nothing happened. Halfway through the morning, a colleague received a telegram. She vaguely heard that the deep-sea flagship, the deep-sea Yamato, had appeared somewhere. Holding the pen in her hand, she didn't panic when she heard the name. Instead, she felt a little funny. Because the swimsuit he snatched from Yamato Fukumai is still hanging in the closet in his room. There are mothballs in the closet, and they are now carefully protected. The swimsuit was well kept, but it was never worn again because the person who gave it to me was never seen again. Although I first got a swimsuit, I wore it for a long time, and I had to wear that swimsuit as my secretary every day. I was harassed and poked when I had free time. It is still an unpleasant experience every time I think about it. However, the person who liked to harass me is gone, and I still recall and miss her every time I see that swimsuit. You don't know how to cherish until you are gone, but you don't know how to care when you are around every day. This is probably the bad nature of human beings, and being a ship girl cannot avoid it. But that man didn't give me a ring, and he harassed me every day. He deserved to be upset, damn man. After recalling it, she realized that she would not be so immersed in the past. After all, life would go on. She was working on the information with a pen, and then she heard the voice of her colleague, Helena. We have received information that a deep-sea flagship has appeared, it has been confirmed, and they are requesting support. Helena said, even if the deep-sea flagship is discovered, judging from usual experience, it will not attack the city so quickly. The deep-sea flagship will gather more and more deep-sea ship girls until it becomes a deep-sea fleet. Yes, but now we have to start taking precautions. So where are the people in the combat team? Where are they now? We went to suppress the deep-sea battleships, I'm actually not sure. Really? You don't know either? But speaking of the combat team, weren't you in the combat team before? Past tense. Then the two of them sent the telegram information to the leader together. When to send someone to contact them, and the true validity of the telegram, these are all things that the leader needs to judge. Although tasks are then dropped for everyone to work on, a program is a program. When the Kanyang headquarters grows bigger and bigger, we can no longer let personal will affect some things. Rules should be things that everyone needs to abide by. After all, both people and ship girls will be affected by their feelings. Only rules are the most important, fair, and just. Although the current rules are not perfect and there are still many loopholes that can be exploited, they will get better little by little in the future. Then walked out of the leader's office. The telegram has been sent, by the way, your children are actually quite capable. Helena asked doubtfully, why do you say that? There was an aviation warfare exercise that day, and I saw your child sitting there. She looked at the exercise, and then slowly uttered a sentence, fight over and over again, they are all a bunch of rubbish. I was listening to her words. It sounds very domineering, and it doesn't sound like bragging. It's just bragging, don't believe it? It's just that she's very powerful. I saw her trying to buy wine secretly with someone the other day. I'll go back and teach her a lesson. The morning passed like this, and I went home at noon. Sister Helena. Lafayette, I told you not to show off your abilities in front of others. Saying this, she taught Lafayette a lesson and wondered a little melancholy why she was the nanny. Lexington and Saratoga ran away from the beginning and actually left their children to everyone. Deep-sea flagship, although things are very important, the procedures must be followed, so there is no rush. She just taught Lafayette a lesson, but the little girl didn't care and played with her finger. Later, when I was washing the dishes, I thought to myself, it is true that the older the children get, the harder it becomes to manage them. After eating, washing the dishes, and taking a nap, exhaustion is a woman's biggest enemy. The nap was not over yet, and I was woken up in the middle of my sleep. So she hurried to the leader's office. The leader had a serious expression and said, "Helena, you must rush there first. The intelligence is wrong, because the deep-sea flagship has appeared, bringing the deep-sea fleet with it. Eat people's food and obey others. Since there is a mission, there is nothing you can do." Then he told Lafayette to have dinner at the house of the aunt next door, and the sister next door. After chatting for a while, Lafayette was already a little impatient. "I can handle it myself, don't treat Lafayette like a child anymore." Now Lafayette is a big ferocious tiger. But still using adjectives like ferocious tigers is just like a child. "Sister Helena, come back and bring me snacks." In this way, Helena unfolded the ship's equipment on the beach. It would be a long journey. What she has to do now is to rush over in advance and understand everything. The rest of the combat team will come over afterwards. A long time later, when Helena arrived all the way to the county where her destination was, it was already night. When I walked ashore from the pier to my destination, I saw admirals and ship girls leaving one after another along the way. Unexpectedly, I received a lot of attention. Sitting here in the war room not long after, Helena said, "This is my work permit. I am the Helena. We received a telegram saying that a deep-sea flagship appeared here. I just saw many admirals leaving. Why should they leave at this time? Even if it is time to rest, there is no need for them to leave at this time. It is too early. As for the combat team, it will take some time to arrive. What about now? Where is the deep-sea flagship?" Helena said this, and then heard the ship girl who introduced herself at the beginning, named Nelson, said, "They are not coming. When you sail over, there is no way to inform you. Just now, I've contacted them over there, so there's no need for the combat team to come over." Helena turned her head and saw a somewhat resentful look in her eyes. It was a person named Linda. Her lips opened and closed silently, as if she was talking about the amount of dirty breasts. Helena didn't care and said at this time, "Why?" "Because it's over." "It's over? What do you mean?" "That means the deep-sea flagship has been suppressed now." "Suppressed? Who is so powerful?" "A governor's garrison." "Is there such a powerful garrison here?" "Have you never heard of the governor here?" No, it's just a new man's garrison, but he has a very powerful ship girl." Helena clasped her hands together and held her breasts, feeling that things were a bit funny. "When I first heard that the deep-sea flagship had appeared, I rushed over in a hurry, but in the end nothing happened. Since a newcomer can solve it in the garrison, why did he make the matter so dangerous in the first place?" Helena asked, "Awesome ship girl? What kind of ship girl is so powerful? How about Lexington and Saratoga, Bismarck and Tirpitz, plus the Prince of Wales and counterattack? By the way, there's also Akagi, who turns out to be an instructor at our academy. Are the newcomers that great now? This configuration is indeed enough to defeat the deep-sea flagship." Helena said, "It would be best if the matter is resolved, but since there is such a powerful garrison, didn't you know about it beforehand?" "I really don't know. There are so many ship girls in a short period of time. He said they were his former ship girls, but he didn't find them until now." "So powerful, who is it?" "The ship girl can still be lost." When he first heard the explanation, Nelson himself thought it was funny and said, "A new admiral named Sugu." Helena's smile faded for a moment. Tell me again, who is he? A new admiral named Sugu. Sugu, your name sounds so familiar. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 266. The heavy rain has passed, the dark clouds have dispersed, and the bright stars can be seen in the night sky. It rained lightly in the morning, and then stopped. I took my raincoat with me as I sailed from my workplace to the southern county town, but unfortunately I didn't use my raincoat. Arriving at the destination and communicating with people, they found out that the deep-sea flagship had been repulsed, and then heard a somewhat unexpected name, Sugu. Sugu, that is a somewhat familiar name, not so much familiar as it is engraved in my heart. Ship girls are different from ordinary people. Once they decide, they decide. They are unusually stubborn in some aspects. From the moment he woke up, from the moment he called him Admiral, something was engraved in his heart and engraved in steel. When I heard such a name, my already silent heart became excited. Sugu, the world is so big, it is not impossible to have the same name, just as there are many Helenas in the world besides myself. But if there is Lexington and Saratoga, there are so many people there, and they happen to be so strong. The name happens to be that name, there is no such thing as a coincidence in the world. However, I was excited and then calmed down again. At this time, Helena held her face with one hand. She brushed the wet bangs on her forehead with her fingers, and then said, "Can you tell me what he looks like?" The admiral named Sugu. She tried her best to keep her expression calm. Seems abnormal. However, no matter how well Helena disguised herself, it would be understandable if she wanted to ask about the other person's identity and background, but asking about the appearance made Nelson a little confused. At this time she said, "Do you know that Sugu?" Helena shook her head and said, "I don't know. I haven't seen it, so of course I don't know. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. I have experienced hope and disappointment several times in such a long time." Nelson received such an answer and had a lot of doubts in his heart. However, it was not easy to ask casually when everyone was unfamiliar with it. Nelson stood up next to the long table, stretched out his hand to make a gesture, and then said, "So tall, with an average appearance. I don't pay much attention to my appearance. I'm not fat or thin, not tall or short, so I can only describe it to you this way. Generally speaking, the words that can be used are tall, short, fat, thin, high nose bridge or short nose bridge. There are only a few words to describe someone." Nelson was good at fighting. She had been an instructor for such a long time and was good at teaching, but she didn't have the ability to describe a whole person's appearance after leaving. Unable to get an answer, Helena said, "Then where is he now?" Nelson looked at the floor-standing pendulum clock placed in the corner of the joint operations room. It rang several times just before the hour. He didn't count deliberately, but he also knew that it was very late now. Nelson said, "It's not far to go to him, but it's already very late, otherwise we should call him over tomorrow. There are some things that we need to discuss. Since he defeated the deep-sea ship girl, there are some reports that he needs to explain. The deep-sea flagship was destroyed. Of course, such an important matter required a report from an admiral. Otherwise, there are so many battleships, and these battleships are replenishing resources, which is a bit scary. Even the warship headquarters cannot just let it go. If everyone does this way of eating, the ship girl headquarters will also be destitute." Hearing such an answer at this time, even though she was anxious, Helena thought about it and calmed down. Then they talked some more, about work matters and gossip, and then Helena followed the people to the room assigned to her. "Wash your face, wipe your body with a towel, and then wash your feet. At night, Helena lay in the room prepared for herself. She didn't bring any change of clothes, and of course no pajamas. The door closed and the curtains were drawn. She took off her coat and underwear, looked at her perfect drop-shaped breasts in front of the floor-length mirror, and then lay straight on the bed. The amount of vaginal milk, Helena thought of what that man liked to say. How could that person appear again? Helena was worried, and Sugu was also worried on the other side. Battleships like the Bismarck and the Prince of Wales are of course very powerful, but being powerful also comes with a huge cost. Even in the original game, it was considered a huge cost, but here it must be said that it is a huge cost. No wonder they say that newcomers should not think about building, otherwise if they don't accumulate, they will be destitute in one wave. Sugu didn't build anything, and these girls were originally her shipmates, but these people were really merciless when it came to eating and drinking. All the resources were used up. When Sugu looked at the empty warehouse with a flashlight, he really didn't know whether this was a loss or a gain. Although I also know that the achievement of wiping out such a deep-sea fleet must be guaranteed, and the replenishment of resources will only be approved when the time comes. Although he knew that the resources would be reimbursed, when he walked around the warehouse, he still felt disappointed because the warehouse was so clean. Sugu walked around the warehouse, followed by a grimacing Leipzig, and Zeppelin came over soon after. Sugu said, "There must be resources. The main thing is when can they be distributed?" Zeppelin said, "Ask me, it will probably take 10 days and a half. Moreover, you have to prepare before that. If such a war occurs, you must make a report on the specific things and the details of the battle. Pass through and so on. There was no battle, we just discovered the deep-sea flagship, and then we all attacked, and we won. Well, that's what happened. It sounds easy, but who can do it? Anyway, I'll tell you if it's more difficult. Therefore, if a family has an elder, it is like having a treasure. If you are not good at it, you only need to consult Zeppelin. After all, she is a veteran." Nelson and Linda left. Sugu looked at the empty warehouse and found nothing he could do. Then he went back to the cafeteria, cleaned up the mess, and then packed up his things and got ready to go to bed. "I sat in my room at night, drafting the report in my mind. Then the door of the room rang, and Sugu saw Saratoga sneaking into his room holding a pillow. "Brother-in-law, how is your head?" Saratoga, who was wearing a white nightgown, seemed to be asking for help. "You still have the nerve to say, who did this? You're not even a brother-in-law. A beautiful girl doesn't know anything when she reaches that level." Sugu sat on the wall, closed the book in his hand, and said, "Pervert, bad habits. What I want to do, who made me hit the wall?" The girl Saratoga didn't take it seriously but giggled. She threw herself on the bed and exposed her slender white legs. She said, "Originally, I should be the MVP, and I should do whatever I do. I shot down many shots in one opening. How many carrier-based aircraft do you know?" Now that he was talking about this, Sugu thought of Leipzig's expression and said, "You don't know how much aluminum you have eaten. I have wiped out so many deep-sea ship girls. You have no idea how much aluminum you're eating." Saratoga smiled and patted Sugu's thigh and said, "Brother-in-law, you will get beaten if you do this." After talking like this, she heard a knock on the door. Saratoga got under Sugu's quilt, blinked her eyes to show that it was just like before, and whispered, "If it's my sister, just say I'm not here." However, at this time, the person who pushed open the door was Xiaozai, who was wearing floral pajamas and slippers. She hit Sugu's bed like a cannonball and said, "That Zai is so annoying. He keeps saying that he won the MVP. I slept with the admiral." When Saratoga heard Xiaozai's voice, she stuck her head out from under the quilt and said, "Xiaozai, you're the one annoying me. Sleeping with Xiaozai in your arms was the most wonderful thing, and you slept happily until the next morning." The next morning, After breakfast in the cafeteria, Sugu saw York City practicing. As the most belligerent guy in the garrison, he is also the guy who likes to study the most, but has the worst skills. At this time, York City was probably stimulated by the original battlefield scene, and it was obvious that he found that his ability was far behind compared to others. A girl with big breasts and no brains who likes to whip her legs is standing on the pier. York City let the carrier-based aircraft roar over the sea, while Zeppelin stood with her and took command. Now the only person who is considered a qualified instructor in the garrison is Zeppelin. Lexington has his own affairs, and Akagi is still having breakfast. She is usually the first to eat and the last to leave the cafeteria. As for Saratoga and Sugu, they were sitting side by side on the steps of the stairs from the pier to the governor's house. "You hold my hand." "It doesn't matter, sister can't see you anyway." "That's true." His chest was very soft, which was what Sugu felt, but he always felt like there was a trap inside. Sugu said, "What do you think of York City's level?" Trash. The words were deliberately prolonged. In Saratoga's eyes, York City's level was indeed too inferior. But now that Sugu has understood the world, he does not insist that York City has the strength to enter the event in the game. As long as York City can have dozens of levels, that's enough. After all, the enemies in this world are quite weak. Of course, in such a situation, one should not provoke those powerful deep-sea flagships. I watched the exercise in York City and saw the carrier-based aircraft circling in the sky. It was another quiet day, he thought to himself, and then he saw a girl with short blonde hair sailing over from a distance. The girl first talked to York City, and then walked this way. As they got closer and closer, Sugu didn't recognize that girl, Saratoga didn't recognize her, and she was definitely not a familiar person. The girl saw Sugu and said, "You must be Sugu. The people from the ship girl headquarters want to meet you." Saratoga sat there and said, "What a big racket, they don't know how to come here." Then the girl saw Saratoga again, and said in surprise, "I am an employee of the academy, and I just joined. I am the light aircraft carrier Colossus." "Are you Senior Saratoga? I heard that it is very powerful." Saratoga Zeppelin told Nelson about the addition, and Nelson told her again. Saratoga was stunned when he heard what the other party said, and then his favorable impression of the other party suddenly rose. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De-Rong Yan. Chapter 267. The ship girl headquarters came to call him. Should he go there by himself or the other party? Sugu took these things very lightly. After all, he had never been a high-ranking official or leader before, but when he later became an admiral, he supposedly had a certain status. However, he has never regarded the ship girl as a subordinate, but as a friend's partner, sister, or wife. As for the latter point, it is mainly because his mentality is getting better and better now. The person who came over this time was neither Linda nor Nelson. Sugu didn't recognize the person who came over, and neither did Chi Bolin. She introduced herself as the new employee of the academy, the light aircraft carrier Colossus. Since she was a new employee of the academy, it was natural. The girl had short blonde hair, was short and thin, and her chest was like a flat plate to some extent. Sugu is aware of the Colossus in the game, although he has never caught it. Because the Colossus was coming, York City also gave up training at this time and joined in the fun. But even though Colossus came over and asked him to go on a trip to meet someone from the ship girl headquarters, he was not in a hurry to go there. Sugu also wanted to tell Lexington. Moreover, he didn't expect it to happen so quickly at first. His report was not finished at all, but it must not be that important this time. At this time, Sugu took the giant statue to the governor's mansion. The other person seemed to be particularly talkative. As for the talkativeness, it can only be said that the girl was very curious and particularly gossipy. At this time, walking in the unfamiliar townhouse, she didn't feel any stranger at all. At this time, looking at the surrounding environment, Colossus whispered to Sugu, "I have also heard of Instructor Zeppelin's name. I heard that it is very fierce, but it doesn't look like it. Zeppelin can't be fierce here. Both Lexington and Saratoga are stronger than her, and the little destroyer doesn't buy her account at all." But if he thought so, of course he wouldn't say it. Sugu nodded and said, "Absolutely." The Colossus was terrifyingly familiar. She looked around, then patted Sugu enthusiastically on the shoulder and said, "Is that person sitting on the bench drinking tea Senior Akage? His long black hair is like satin, okay. I want to touch it. But why is she wearing a hair tie? I don't think it looks good." "You think it doesn't look good, but you can't help but let others wear hair ties, and besides, they are not tied for you to see." Colossus was chirping, and he and Sugu seemed to be good friends. Saratoga, who was originally very fond of her, followed behind, showing an angry expression. But Saratoga's angry expression could not be seen by the Colossus. She said, "Where are we going now?" "My office." "Why go there?" "I need to speak to my secretaryship before I leave." "Your secretaryship is Lexington, Senior Lexington?" "Yes." Colossus whispered, "Let me tell you, won't Lexington and Akage fight? According to the history of the old world, shouldn't Lexington and Akage be enemies?" Sugu glanced at the giant statue, which made the girl feel numb. Then he sighed and said, "Even according to the history of the old world, Lexington and Xianghe are the enemies." "Oh, is this a showdown between the ladies?" "Whether it is Lexington or Xianghe, these two ship girls generally have wives-like personalities, and quite a few people would say that they are wives." It is no wonder that Colossus said such a thing at this time. Suguhan didn't know what to say to such a giant figure with a cheerful personality, so he just responded casually. "Walking through most of the tutelage, I also saw a lot of people along the way. San Juan, counterattack." At this time, the Colossus made an exaggerated voice and said, "There are so many ship girls in your tutelage, have you ever been attacked at night?" "What night raid?" "It's the night raids that are often mentioned in those books. The ship girl sneaks into the admiral's room at night with a pillow." It's obvious that Colossus has read many girls' comics and romance novels. Sugu glanced at Saratoga, who was following behind. It was this guy who had done the night raid. Saratoga said, "It was an honest attack. It was a shame she had the nerve to say it." Colossus was talking without stopping for a moment. Sugu looked at the girl and said, "Well, it doesn't take long for you to wake up." "Yeah, I woke up at sea, and then I wandered around and met a few people, and then they invited me to the academy. I was still thinking about finding an admiral." Colossus introduced himself with some excitement. Experience, there was no thought of hiding anything. In a short period of time, Sugu learned everything about the Colossus, and all he had to do was wear some underwear. This is how the ship girls who wake up are full of energy. In comparison, some ship girls look young, but their mental age is unknown. They are beautiful but speak in an old-fashioned way. Colossus talked for a long time before stopping, and then said, "Who do you like best among them?" Of course Sugu would not answer this question, as it would cause bad things, so he said, "What do you think?" "Lexington, everyone says she is the perfect wife. She is Saratoga's sister. Saratoga is so beautiful, so her sister must be beautiful too." Sugu looked at the giant statue. "You praised two people with one compliment. Is this intentional or unintentional?" He kept saying this and then arrived at the office. Then Colossus saw Lexington and said, "So beautiful, and she looks like a good wife." "Not as it seems, Lexington is already a wife." Back in the office, Sugu told Lexington the reason for Colossus' visit and what he was going to do next. "After all, I have to leave, so I still need to tell my ship girl at this time to avoid everyone worrying. I talked to Lexington, and then went to Leipzig to get the records about the withdrawal of resources from the warehouse. Through these records, Sugu can basically judge how many resources were consumed by this attack, and then use these resources to bargain with the ship girl headquarters. The resources must be reimbursed, otherwise don't even think about it. After doing all this, we returned to the dock again. Of course, such a small matter would not be notified to everyone in the town hall, so only a few people knew about it at this time. Lexington is a secretary ship, so Sugu and she cannot both disappear. Saratoga wanted to go but didn't want to go. After all, she wasn't going shopping or going on a date, she was going to do errands. She was not interested in such things. She thought about it for a while, but before she could make a decision, Bizai suddenly appeared and called her, and then she ran away. So it was Chi Bolin who went out with Sugu in the end. York City went back to exercise again, and even if it was just on a whim, the enthusiasm didn't die out so quickly. Not long after, on the yacht, Colossus kept talking. She said, many admirals gathered together. There must have been more than a dozen admirals at that time, and many ship girls also came over. Some admirals brought adults, and a child is like taking care of a family. I don't know what the deep-sea flagship is, but is there any need to be so scared? The ignorant are fearless. This is the Colossus, a very typical performance. Zeppelin said, you have never seen a deep-sea flagship. Once you see it, you will know how scary it is. Colossus turned his attention to Zeppelin and said, what does the deep-sea flagship look like? Is the height 8 feet tall and the waist 8 feet too? Where did you hear that adjective? Martial arts novels. Zeppelin said, she looks like an ordinary ship girl, but the ship outfit is very powerful, and she is a deep-sea ship girl. Colossus said, Abyssal flagship, is it really that powerful? Abyssal Yamato, does she wear a beast-like ship uniform? I heard that if you get close to her, those beast-like ship uniforms will bite the ship girl into pieces. 2 pieces, it's a bit scary when you think about it. But can a ship girl really be bitten in two? I don't know. Abyssal Yamato, I feel powerful when I hear it, Yamato, a big piece. I am the ship girl who inherited the soul of the light aircraft carrier Colossus, Colossus, it should be big. Colossus said this, she held her own face, and then took out a small mirror from his pocket. I don't think I'm very big, my face is quite small, and I look quite thin, but it just happens to be called Colossus. Sugu took a look and saw that your breasts were also small and super flat. He said, have you seen the people coming from the ship girl headquarters? What kind of ship girl is that? I saw it from the beginning. She has a very powerful caliber. Her breasts are very big, very big. I think it should be a heavy cruiser, or maybe a battle cruiser or a battleship, but the ship's uniform doesn't look like anything at all. Powerful and domineering. Or rather, she is a pocket battle cruiser like Deutschland, but pocket battle cruisers are usually little girls. That person looks so mature, mainly because she looks very mature there. I don't know what type of ship girl she is. I just saw her on the dock, and then I went to sleep. Lack of sleep is the enemy of women. Colossus didn't stop talking for a moment, and soon after landing on the shore, Colossus took everyone to the joint operations room. After the storm, Sugu looked around and saw that the streets were in a mess. The broken flower pots were blown away from the balcony and fell to the ground. Newspapers and snakeskin bags were scattered on the ground. The broken rattan basket was thrown in the middle of the road. At this time, someone was sweeping the floor with a bamboo broom on the roadside, but that person just swept away the garbage in front of his house. The Colossus said, here, do you see that big house? It's over there. Walking into the courtyard, walked up a flight of steps, passed by a flower garden, and then walked to a room. Zeppelin said, be careful when you speak, don't be so casual. Sugu said, I can just live whenever I want. Just a reminder. Sugu opened the door and saw the person from the so-called ship girl headquarters. The other person is wearing a hat and has an exquisite and beautiful appearance. Just as Colossus said, I have to admit that the soft flesh on the other person's chest is hard to look away from. He doesn't know what kind of ship girl the other party is. The ship's uniform was not revealed, and he recognized the game illustration but not the real person. Sugu said, "Hello, I am Admiral Sugu." Helena on the other side saw Sugu's look, and her heart almost jumped. She wanted to say hello and said, "Admiral, you didn't expect it was me." However, she then saw that Sugu's eyes were full of strangers and he didn't recognize her at all. "I thought, I am Helena, don't you recognize me?" An admiral can't forget his own ship girl, that would be too much. Or is it impossible to say that he is not his admiral? It is impossible to fake that feeling. Helena pursed her lips and thought again, it doesn't matter if you don't recognize him, there will always be a way to remind you. Helena looked at Zeppelin and said, "It doesn't matter if Admiral Sugu and I go alone." Zeppelin said, "I am not her ship girl, I am his instructor. You can do whatever you want." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 268. Does it have to be this way? Sugu and Helena walked along the garden outside the joint war room. There are beautiful trees and flowers planted in the garden. Yesterday there was heavy wind and rain, and a lot of leaves and petals were blown off. When Yamato retreated to Shanghai, the heavy rain stopped and the north wind blew again all night. The next day was a nice day, there was no water in the potholes, and everything was dry. At this time, the ground was full of fallen leaves and petals, on the stone benches, and grass, which was unexpectedly beautiful. This kind of scenery reminded Sugu of the same situation in his own townhouse before. However, now that the counterattack has arrived, there is no need to worry about anything in the townhouse. The fallen leaves will always be cleaned up immediately. After all, Fletcher took charge of the counterattack and now took care of most things. On the other side, walking side by side with his admiral was a feeling I had never experienced before. Although the other party didn't know her at this time and it wasn't considered a date, it was still a very good feeling for Helena. At this time Helena said, "I heard that you destroyed the deep-sea flagship. How are the enemies?" Sugu thought for a while, and now that the resources in the guardhouse are completely gone, it is of course necessary to make it more difficult at this time. Those who should be reimbursed must be reimbursed, and the rewards should be generous. Abyssal flagship, of course it is very powerful. Abyssal Yamato can sink the ship with just one shot, even a battleship, so my fleet has paid a lot for this. In this attack, inside the enemy's fleet there is also the deep-sea snow wind, and the auspicious imperial family is safe. Regardless of whether it is due to metaphysics or other reasons, your bombardment has no way of hitting her. Sugu was talking, but Helena interrupted him and said, "But I heard that your fleet took half a day, not even half a day, to be precise, it took a few hours at most to repel the deep sea. Flagship Abyssal Yamato. How should I put it? The fact that the deep-sea flagship was defeated in such a short time does not mean that the deep-sea flagship is weak. It can also be said that my garrison is strong. It cannot be said that it is strong. It should be said that everyone has worked hard and my ship girl has paid a lot. They are brave and fearless. I heard that you are the new admiral. It's not that the new admiral is weak, but the old salted fish is powerful. For this attack, our garrison spent a lot of resources." Sugu said this and glanced at the other party. He would not give in to that. After all, the breasts of the Prince of Wales are definitely not bad and stable. Helena looked at Sugu and thought to herself, there will be a day when you are short of resources. She said, the resources will be reimbursed to you, since your town hall is so strong, as the ship girl headquarters, I hope you can take on the responsibility of suppressing Shanghai. Flagship mission. Sugu immediately said, "It is not that easy to suppress the deep-sea flagship. It will easily sink. If it sinks, it will sink. If you don't take risks, how can you have the opportunity to improve your position?" Hearing this, Sugu stared into the opponent's eyes and said, "I won't risk my ship, girl. If you want to suppress the deep-sea flagship, you should hire someone else." Although the deal with deep-sea Yamato went smoothly this time, but Sugu has experience in the game, and he knows that the deep-sea flagship is not that easy to defeat. Even though there are many ship girls around him, enemies can also appear in many places. Suguji spoke sternly, and Helena whispered to herself, "Oh, this is what an admiral is." Although sometimes he does things to the extreme, he will never put his ship girl in danger. This is what an admiral is. Character. Sugu didn't hear Helena's words clearly. He said, "What did you say?" "There is nothing." The appearance is right, the feeling is also right, this is the admiral. But does the other party really not remember things? After thinking for a while, Helena said, "I heard that you like to harass your ship girl in the town hall." Although he did harass many people in the game, he would not do such bad things now. Sugu said, "It's absolutely nonsense. I have never done anything like that." "Real. Real." Hearing this, Helena sneered. She took off the outermost piece of clothing, revealing a white shirt underneath. The shirt has a ruffled neckline, and the curvature of the shirt outlines the drop-shaped chest. Then she took off the hat on her head, and her long blue hair fell down. She divided her long hair into two bunches and said, "Have you really never done anything like that?" Sugu shook his head and said, "No. Please give me your hand." He was a little confused, but Sugu still handed his hand to the other party honestly. It was not a big deal anyway. Then Sugu saw the other party pick up his hand and put it on the towering chest. It was very big and soft, but, hey, what kind of expansion is this? Sugu wanted to take it back, and grabbed it with his hand. Very tight. Do you recognize this? You didn't like doing this kind of thing the most in the past. Helena. Helena took Sugu's hand away and sneered, "My Lord Admiral, you finally remembered." He took Sugu's hand and put it on his chest. Helena was certainly ashamed to do such a thing. She had no choice but to take the initiative when she was harassed in the past. "I have always been reserved at work, and although there are times when I get violent, I am still serious most of the time. The main reason for doing such a thing is that the other party has forgotten about me. This action is just out of resentment. You used to touch my mother's breasts and you were so happy, but now you have forgotten about her." It's hard to say how he feels about Sugu and his admiral. In terms of importance, giving myself a Kirov cannon was indeed very satisfying at first. However, when I saw Kirov having his equipment stripped off by the admiral just after arriving at the garrison, I still felt a little uneasy. Giving away other people's equipment is something that a bad person would do. For a long time, he had no shame to see the Kirov. If we talk about treatment alone, I have two sets of clothes, more than anyone else. The first set is a suit called Shadow Raid, and the second set is a swimsuit snatched from Yamato Deep Sea, seemingly called Heart of the Ocean. Although the nightmare started when I received the swimsuit, summer and autumn seemed to be approaching winter, and I kept wearing the swimsuit for a long time. It's okay to wear a swimsuit, but he harasses himself all day long, more frequently than anyone else, and his harassing actions are also quite bad. Now that I think about it, it's a little strange that I didn't resist at that time. But no matter what, I can't recall the initial mood. Thinking about it afterwards, I felt different about the admiral at that time. But harassment is harassment, generally speaking it is a sign of liking. It's just that he didn't give himself a ring. If he had given it, the ring would definitely come next, but he didn't. Although the relationship is between the admiral and the ship girl, theoretically speaking, There are some things that cannot be done, such as harassing people, but they are done. There are obviously many rings, but they are not given. Sometimes I really don't understand how the Admiral treats me. Like it or not. Helena looked at Sugu with her hands behind her back. She was bent over, her back and hips forming a perfect arc. Sugu glanced over and saw the heavy fruit on the other person's chest, as if he was deliberately tempting her. It could also be said that as a woman with a lot of capital, she did not show off deliberately but would reveal her capital unintentionally. Helena said at this time, "I found that you have been looking here." As she said this, she put her hands on her chest. "In the past, you didn't like poking or touching the most." "Yes, only doing such things can remind people." Helena tilted her head and said, "Is it enough just to look at it? Don't you want to poke it? Don't you want to touch it?" Helena put her hand in front of her chest to block it. It was not so much a shield, but there was no way to block it with one hand. At this time, it was better to say that she was still holding the pipa and half covering her face. Sugu pursed his lips and felt that his lips were a little dry. Over there, Helena saw Sugu's current appearance and stood up straight again. "My pervert admiral who likes to harass his ship's wife. Hello. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 269. The person in front of him was Helena, which was something Sugu had never thought of that morning. Although he has indeed met many ship girls of his own these days, he would not just meet a ship girl randomly and think that it is his ship girl. I didn't recognize it at first, but when I heard Helena's rather resentful words, my heart skipped a beat. Then I experienced the feeling of super large breasts, and I could almost tell that it was Helena. When I used to play games, I really liked poking at Helena. I have to admit that I am a gentleman admiral many times. Helena's breasts, the Prince of Wales's breasts, the fantasy white stockings and feet, the archer fish's butt, well, these all interest me quite a bit. The tone full of resentment made people feel ashamed, and the smooth feeling on the fingers made people feel fantastic. At this time, Sugu felt a little guilty because he didn't recognize the other person at all. But there is no other way, the game is a game, and the vertical painting is a vertical painting. Although the other person's breasts are quite distinctive, they don't remind me of Helena at all. If you think so, of course you won't say such things. At this time, Sugu could only quickly explain his experience to Helena, and sat on the bench in the garden while talking. After all, the story was very long. Then when Sugu finished telling his experience, Helena blinked and looked at him and said, "Are you really not lying?" "Definitely not." "Then I'm a little relieved. I thought the Admiral had abandoned us." After saying this, Helena patted her chest. She didn't know whether she said it sincerely or deliberately. But one thing is for sure, those heavy breasts attract people's attention. Sugu glanced at it, and when Helena looked over, he quickly put it aside, thinking to himself, what a shameful amount of breasts. Helena laughed when she saw this scene. Now that we have recognized each other, the next words are much more casual. Thinking of Sugu coming over, Helena said, "It's just that we defeated the deep-sea flagship, deep-sea Yamato." At first, I was still thinking, such a big who can solve the matter so quickly. If it were our town guard, there would be no problem at all. Yes, just like that, Sugu told what happened to deep-sea Yamato. How did you discover the deep-sea ship girl in the first place, who launched the attack, and finally found out that the resources of the garrison were not enough for everyone to replenish them, so no matter what, you had to reimburse the resources to the ship girl headquarters, and that was the purpose of coming here this time? After hearing all this, Helena snapped her fingers and said, "The resource issue is easy to solve. This is how we will handle this matter. Helena was a little excited and said, battleships consume a lot of money, but the ship girl headquarters still attaches great importance to battleships, and the consumption of battleships will basically be reimbursed. Although it is said that it will be reimbursed, there is a limit. It is impossible for you to destroy a deep-sea destroyer and then report a lot of resources to the ship's headquarters, saying that 6 battleships were sent to attack. What kind of enemy corresponds to what kind of resources? Consumption can be fine-tuned up or down, but it cannot be excessive. We're going to do some tricks in this area. The deep-sea flagship is super powerful. When the time comes, you can exaggerate the report. Anyway, no one can verify it now. The deep-sea fleet was defeated, and there is no evidence left. But the deep-sea fleet appeared. This is something everyone knows. This is a big event, and everyone is considered a hero. As long as it does not go too far, the ship mom's headquarters doesn't care. Helena said this, and when she saw Sugu looking at her with a strange expression, she said, whatever you look at, admirals do such things, and the ship girl headquarters usually don't care, as long as they don't go too far. Moreover, the ship girl headquarters family has a big business, so it doesn't matter if we need more resources, we can't be poor. Of course, it's not okay to falsely report your military achievements, but it's okay to exaggerate your achievements a little. It's impossible to really rely on your admiral's resources. Otherwise, no admiral can get the resources to build it. I'm on the ship. I work at the mother's headquarters, and I know how to maximize reimbursement resources. Although she has awakened from beautiful memories, the ship girl is not completely truthful, kind, and beautiful. Even if you are a good person in a general sense, no one can be completely impartial and honest. What's more, some ship girls will do anything for their admirals. A ship girl will do what she thinks is a good thing, and sometimes she may do bad things with good intentions. He won't do bad things, but he will do some specious things, such as swearing, quarreling, and being jealous. All in all, Kanyang's view of good and evil is the general view of good and evil, not that of a saint. Helena said this, biting her lip and thinking for a long time, and said for a long time, I am good at doing this kind of thing. If you just do it once, if you want to do it again in the future, then we can't show that we are very familiar with each other. Come on. You are not my admiral, and I am not your ship girl. Otherwise, if people know about our relationship, I will avoid dealing with you. Yes, that's it, so I took you away because I didn't want anyone to know about our relationship. Helena said this, and Sugu said, there is no need to do such a thing and throw away our relationship for a few resources. Since you are my ship girl, I hope the whole world knows that you are my ship girl. I will protect you well and hope to make you happy, very happy, until one day I am too old to move. Sometimes the ship girl really doesn't know how to respond to her feelings. After all, compared to ordinary situations, I have a unique advantage. I have a favorability of 100 at the beginning, and I only need a ring to have sex. Although it is said that a ship girl easily falls in love with her admiral, this is just from a normal perspective, and there may be a ship girl who has feelings for the admiral, which is not love but friendship or family affection. Just like York City, I have to say that after such a long time, everyone's relationship has actually been like that. She must have some favorable impressions of herself, but if she made a request like let me touch your breasts, she would definitely not be greeted by a slightly forward body and a blushing face. Definitely a whip kick, or a pussy kick. In fact, he also knew what the ship girl was thinking and how she felt about him. Otherwise, with the looks and figures of everyone in the governor's mansion, it would not be a big problem to become the wife of those high-ranking officials or wealthy businessmen. Just like Lexington and Bismarck, they can go to those super-rich garrison houses without having to stay in their own small garrison house. No matter how you think about it, even if it sounds a bit boastful, Your ship girl still wants to stay by your side. The feelings of your ship girl are heartbreaking. Sugu said, for a few resources, I can't do such a thing without acknowledging each other. I also want to take you around, and I want to build the Tutelary mansion into a first-class super luxurious Tutelary mansion. I just want to stay with you. Resources, just use them as little as possible, there is no need to sacrifice you. As long as you want it, as long as I can do it, I will satisfy you. I am actually an ordinary person without any great abilities. I am very happy to be your admiral. I may not be able to do anything. Earth-shattering things are coming, but there is one thing I dare to say, as long as you want it, as long as I have it. The ship girl is your companion and lover, not a tool for you to seize money, power, and resources. Sugu always thought so. Helena looked at Sugu and thought, it's too much for you to say such things, you must be cheating. Even though I've been away for such a long time, I still can't recognize the person immediately. But if you say cheating like this, how can I still get angry? Helena lowered her head and looked at her slender fingers. As long as you want it, as long as I have it. Me, I want a ring. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 270. Of course Sugu didn't know Helena's thoughts at this time. Anyway, he just expressed his thoughts. At this time, two people were sitting side by side on a bench in the garden. The wind blew up and rolled up the fallen leaves on the ground. Helena had already taken off her hat and placed it on her legs together. A few strands of her long blue hair were blown by the wind and danced in the air. The cheerful look just now disappeared, and she completely lost the posture of a capable working woman. Helena lowered her head, twirled her fingers, and said, "The Admiral has said so much, I should quit my job at the ship girl headquarters and return to the guard's house." Sugu said, "That's what I hope anyway. But there is still a lot of work at the Kanyang headquarters. If I leave, all the work will be passed on to others. Moreover, my current boss and leader value me very much, so they transferred me from the combat team. It's not good if I just leave like this. Whatever you think, whatever you want to do, I support you." "What do I think?" Helena thought like this without giving a reply. Sugu looked at the sky, hesitated, and said, "Anyway, I hope you will come back." "You will come back?" Helena showed a smile and said, "Since you said that, there is nothing you can do." Sugu smiled narrowly and said, "Yes, there is no other way. After all, it is the Admiral's request." Helena straightened her bangs that were blown by the wind, tucked her hair behind her ears, and said, "Yes, there is nothing we can do about the Admiral's request. Even if we are harassed, we can only bear it silently." Suddenly, Sugu was defeated. After saying this, Helena tapped her fingers on the armrest like a girl. She sat on the bench, her legs swaying to the beat of her fingers. Although he has a mature figure, he is still a light cruiser, so it is not surprising that he is a little girly. However, this action only lasted a few seconds. Helena stopped immediately when she noticed Sugu looking at her. In order to ease the embarrassment just now, Helena coughed and said, "It doesn't matter what I said before. As long as you don't use the power of the ship girl frequently, it doesn't matter if the resources are less. But there is one thing, Admiral, I want to remind you. Oh. With everyone being such a powerful ship girl, just like what I said at the beginning, someone will ask you to defeat those deep-sea flagships, so sometimes you have to hide your clumsiness. You must show your muscles when you should show them, and you must learn to hide your clumsiness when you should. One thing I tell you is that we only know it when we work at the ship girl headquarters, because they want to reimburse resources and will definitely give us a report. Those admirals outside, everyone says that they don't have battleships. In fact, there are many garrison buildings secretly hiding battleships, and they are afraid that someone will always make demands on them and put them on the fire. Put it on the fire, although admirals and ship girls generally don't do such things. But some ordinary people, not everyone is so good. Some people know that you are very powerful, they will not be considerate, they will say, why don't you defeat the deep sea flagship if you are so powerful? Some ordinary people are easily incited. When countless people make demands on you, the pressure will be great at that time. You can't really suppress the deep sea flagship, it's very dangerous. Actually, I think that our garrison's defeat of the deep sea flagship should be suppressed at best. Don't let just anyone know that we defeated the deep sea flagship. As he kept saying this, Helena was making suggestions as if she were a strategist. Sugu leaned on the back of the chair with his hands on his head. With the Lexington acting as a secretary ship, there are fewer things to do by yourself. When a counterattack comes, she can take care of most of the things in the town hall. After all, she is working hard to become a perfect maid like her sister. San Juan is in charge of purchasing, Prince Eugen is in charge of the canteen, the Queen occasionally sews clothes for everyone, and a group of destroyers are in charge of being queued. Leipzig is particularly good at making deals with people. If there is a contract, she will read it carefully every time, word for word. After all, she has a very strong concept of money. Now that Helena can also make suggestions, it seems that her role is becoming smaller and smaller. It's not that I can't control it. It's just a matter that I studied in the academy for such a long time and had a soft life for such a long time. How could I not even understand these things? In the past, I could manage a lot of things, but as the number of people increases, more and more people share their work. I don't even know if I will be completely idle in the future. At this time, Helena understood everything she said, but Sugu still listened patiently. This is a good listener. He said, yeah, I know everything, but my idea is to spread my fame, and then everyone will listen when it comes to me, maybe a ship girl will find her back. Helena said, it makes some sense, but I don't think it is of much use, because many people may not be exposed to the news about the ship girl anymore, and they just live as ordinary people, and if it is passed around, your name will become there is an admiral from the south, an admiral I know. Everyone will remember this incident, but the name Sugu may not be remembered. Sugu nodded, and then said, yes, I am still a little anxious. It has been a few months since I first found Xiazai and graduated from the academy, and now, I have found many ship girls in more than half a year, but it's still very slow when you think about it. Take your time and the progress will get faster and faster. After saying this, Helena paused and said, at the beginning, Lexington took Saratoga away, and when I left, I called the remaining children. Raffi is with me now. Consultant Sue asked, where are the big mackerel and archerfish? Ask them first. The big mackerel and the archerfish didn't follow me. It's a pity, isn't it? They are your favorite submarines. The destroyers Mahan and Keeling. Sugu said, where is the ball? I remember that I stayed in the governor's mansion for a while, but then I didn't know where I went. I have no memory. What's wrong? It's okay, don't say that. Well, I am a sinner. Sugu thought about his garrison, the destroyers belonging to the US fleet, Lafayette, Mahan, Keeling, and the Fletcher class. The destroyers he left behind must basically be good-looking, or they must be modified. The latter is powerful. Many of those destroyers that were not good-looking and easy to fish were just opened with illustrations and then dismantled. Helena said, if you want to find everyone, I know a lot of people. Who? For example, it's the San Diego, for example, it's the white elephant can't. But you can't say she is a white elephant in front of her. She will cry, that weak girl white elephant. It means that the cost is huge and disproportionate to its value or utility. The heavy cruiser Kent is really weak. Besides them, there are many people.